Stepmom threw out my belongings. She didn't know I had the deed to her storage unit. The trash bags were lined up along the curb like swollen black balloons, and one of them had split open, spilling a ribbon of old clothes and damp cardboard onto the driveway. I could smell it before I even shut my car door. Mildew, dust, that sour-sweet smell of paper that's been in a box too long. My stepmom, Elaine, stood on the porch with her arms folded, watching me like I was a delivery she didn't order. The sun was in my eyes, and my hands were already shaking, but my voice came out weirdly steady. "What is this?" I asked, pointing at the bags. Elaine tilted her head, the way she does when she wants to look reasonable. "It's trash," she said. "I cleaned. You're welcome." I walked closer and saw my handwriting on a ripped label. Brooke/Dad's office, scrawled in Sharpie across a water-stained box. My throat went tight. "Those are my things," I said louder. Elaine's mouth twitched like she was holding back a smile. "They were in the way," she replied. "And you don't live here anymore." I dropped to my knees on the driveway without thinking, palms scraping on the rough concrete, and yanked at the nearest bag. Plastic tore with a sharp sound. Something hard clunked inside. I reached in, and my fingers closed around a picture frame, the cheap kind Dad used to buy at the drugstore. Glass cracked, photo bent. It was me and Dad at the county fair, both of us squinting into the sun, his arms slung around my shoulders. I felt a pressure behind my eyes so fast it made me dizzy. "Elaine," I said, and my voice cracked on her name. "That's my dad. That's my life." She stepped down one porch step, not coming close, like she didn't want to breathe the same air as the mess. "I'm not doing this," she said. "You left boxes here for months. I needed the space." I swallowed hard and forced myself to stand, dust and grime on my knees. "You didn't call me," I said. "You didn't text. You didn't even warn me." Elaine's eyes flicked to my face, then away. "I didn't think you'd care," she said, and the casual cruelty of it made my ears ring. It was the first weekend I'd been back since Dad died, which is probably why everything felt like it was happening underwater. 2 months earlier, I'd flown in for the hospital and the funeral and left again in a haze, because grief and logistics don't give you time to sit down and feel anything. Dad's death was sudden. Aneurysm, no warning, one phone call, and then a sprint through airports and waiting rooms and paperwork I couldn't process. Elaine handled the hosting part of the funeral like it was a performance. She hugged people, accepted casseroles, thanked everyone loudly. When it was just us, she spoke in short sentences and kept checking her phone. I kept telling myself it wasn't the time to judge her. We were all just surviving. I'm 26. I live 2 states away. I'd moved out at 18, but Dad had kept my childhood room mostly intact, and when I came home for holidays, I still slept there. After he married Elaine, things shifted in small ways. My toothbrush moved, my photos disappeared from the hallway, my room became the guest room when her friends visited. Dad always tried to smooth it over. "It's just easier," he'd say. "Don't make it a thing." I didn't make it a thing because Dad looked tired all the time, and I loved him more than I hated conflict. When Dad got sick last year, before we knew it would end this way, he started asking me questions about finances in that careful voice he used when he didn't want to scare me. "Do you have your own account? Are you saving? If anything happens, you'll be okay, right?" I thought he was just being dramatic. He wasn't. He was trying to put guardrails up around me without starting a war in his house. After the funeral, Elaine texted me once, "Let me know when you want to come get your stuff." That was it. "No, how are you? No, I miss him too, just logistics." I replied that I needed a few weeks. I had a job. I couldn't just leave immediately. She responded with a thumbs up. I thought that meant she would wait. Apparently, her version of waiting was throwing my dad's office boxes onto the curb the first sunny Saturday she felt like redecorating. Back in the driveway, I dug through the bags like I was searching wreckage. Every time I pulled something out, my chest tightened, my high school yearbooks, the quilt my grandmother made, Dad's old flannel shirt I stole when I was 17 because it smelled like him. Some things were wet. Some things were ruined. I found my birth certificate folded in half and stained along the edges like someone had spilled coffee on it. I found a stack of envelopes, Dad's letters from when he traveled for work, torn open, paper wrinkled. I kept making these small, helpless noises I didn't recognize coming from my own mouth. Elaine stayed on the porch, watching. At one point she called down, "Brooke, you're being dramatic." The word hit me like a slap. I stood up slowly, holding the cracked frame against my chest so hard it hurt. "Where's the box from my dad's desk?" I asked. "The green one. The one with the lock." Elaine blinked. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. I knew she did. Dad kept his most personal things in that box. Photos, old documents, the letter from his father when Grandpa died. I'd seen him open it once and immediately close it when Elaine walked into the room. That box was the one thing I'd promised myself I'd protect. "I left it in his office," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "It should be in there." Elaine's expression tightened. "If it was in the office, it went out," she said. "I didn't go through every little thing." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. My hands went numb. "You threw out a locked box," I said, and my voice sounded far away. "You threw out my father's private things like they were junk." Elaine exhaled sharply, impatient. "It's a box," she snapped. "He's gone, Brooke. You need to move on." Something in me went cold and clear. Not rage, exactly. More like a decision sliding into place. I looked at the house. Dad's house, the one he'd worked for, the one I'd spent my entire childhood inside, and realized I was standing outside it like a stranger begging for scraps. I loaded what I could into my car. The quilt, the yearbooks, the cracked frame, anything salvageable. My hands kept slipping because they were sweaty, and I couldn't stop shaking. Elaine watched like she was supervising a task she didn't want to be responsible for. When I was done, she said, "See, you got your stuff. Can we stop now?" "No," I said. "Not until I find that box." Elaine shrugged. "Maybe the trash truck already took it," she said, like that was the end of the conversation. I didn't answer her. I got in my car and drove away before I did something I couldn't take back. I went to a diner 5 minutes down the road and sat in a booth with sticky menus and a humming neon sign, staring at my phone like it might tell me what to do. My friend Tessa texted, "Did you get there okay?" And I just typed, "Elaine threw my stuff out." Then I put my head down on the table and cried until my coffee went cold. That afternoon, I went to Mr. Heller's office, Dad's attorney. It wasn't planned. It was instinct, like my body knew I needed someone who dealt in facts, not feelings. Mr. Heller looked tired when he saw me, but he didn't look surprised. "Elaine," he asked gently, like he already knew the answer. I nodded and told him what happened, stumbling through it while my hands clenched and unclenched in my lap. He listened without interrupting. Then he opened a folder and slid something across the desk. "Your father updated a few documents last year," he said. "One of them concerns the storage unit." I blinked. "What storage unit?" Mr. Heller tapped the paper. "The deeded storage unit attached to the house," he said. "The one behind the detached garage. It's legally a separate parcel on the property record. Your father bought it years ago when the previous owner subdivided the lot. He put it in your name last summer." I stared at the document until the words swam. "In my name?" I echoed. "Yes," he said. "It's recorded. Elaine is not on it." My brain tried to catch up. Elaine used that storage unit like it was her own. She kept seasonal decorations in there, boxes of her collectibles, and most importantly, she ran a little online reselling business and stored inventory there. She treated it like her personal vault. She kept the key on her ring and once told me, smugly, "At least the storage is mine." I'd believed her. I sat back slowly, heart thudding. "She doesn't know," I said, and it wasn't a question. Mr. Heller's mouth tightened slightly. "Your father didn't want a confrontation while he was alive," he said. "But he wanted you protected. He wanted you to have leverage if things turned ugly." Leverage. The word made me feel sick and relieved at the same time. I didn't want to win against Elaine. I wanted my father's things. I wanted my memories back. I wanted the locked green box. I asked Mr. Heller what I could legally do. He was careful. I'm not advising retaliation, he said. But you're the owner. You can change the lock and restrict access. If you do, document everything. Communicate in writing. Keep it clean. I drove back to the house with the document in my bag and a kind of calm I didn't recognize. Elaine's car was gone. She'd left, probably to cool off or brag to someone about putting her foot down. I walked straight to the storage unit behind the garage. It was smaller than it seemed when you didn't know it mattered. Metal door. Old padlock. Elaine's padlock. I stood there for a moment with my hand on the cold metal, breathing in the scent of cut grass and gasoline, listening to distant traffic. Then I called a locksmith. When the locksmith arrived, he asked if I was the owner. I handed him the recorded document. He looked at it, nodded, and got to work. The sound of the lock snapping open was loud in the quiet yard. My stomach flipped. I pulled the door up, and the air inside was stale and dusty, packed with boxes stacked like a careless wall. I didn't rummage through everything. I didn't want to destroy the space or give Elaine anything to point to and scream about. I looked for one thing, a green lockbox. It was there, shoved behind a plastic bin labeled Holiday in Elaine's handwriting. I felt my whole body go weak when I saw it. I pulled it out with both hands like it was fragile. The little lock was scuffed but intact. I sat on the concrete floor just inside the door and held it against my knees, breathing hard, the relief almost painful. I closed the unit, stepped back out, and watched the locksmith put on a new lock. I asked him for 2 keys. One for me, one for my attorney, to keep things above board. I took photos of everything, the new lock, the unit, the box exactly where it had been found. I did it all with shaking hands, but I did it. Elaine came home an hour later and lost her mind. She stormed into the yard, face flushed, keys jangling, and yanked at the lock like it had personally offended her. "What did you do?" she snapped, turning on me. "Why is my key not working?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even move closer. I held the green lockbox in front of me like a boundary. "You threw my belongings out," I said. "Including this. You said you didn't know what happened to it." Elaine's eyes widened, just for a second, then hardened. "That's my unit," she spat. "It's not," I said, and my hands shook a little, but my words didn't. "Dad transferred it to me. It's in my name." Her mouth opened and closed like she couldn't find sound. Then she tried anger.
"He wouldn't," she said.
"He wouldn't do that to me." "He did," I replied. "And I'm not doing anything to you. I'm protecting what's mine." Elaine stepped closer, voice rising. "You can't lock me out of my property." I pulled out my phone and read from the email I'd already sent with Mr. Heller copied, explaining the change, stating I'd return access once my belongings were returned or compensated, and requesting written confirmation of what had been discarded.
Clean.
Documented. Adult. Every word felt like it weighed 10 pounds. Elaine's face shifted from rage to panic so fast it almost made me dizzy. She glanced toward the storage unit like she could see her inventory evaporating through the door. "You're blackmailing me," she hissed. "No," I said, and my voice finally shook. "You stole time from me. You threw out my dad. You don't get to call me dramatic and then act surprised when there are consequences." She stared at the lockbox in my hands. "Give that to me," she demanded, softer now, like she could negotiate. I tightened my grip.
"No."
That night, she texted me a long message about how I was vindictive and ungrateful. I didn't answer. The next morning, she sent another, "I'll replace whatever was lost. Just give me the key." I replied once, in writing, with a list of items I needed returned or reimbursed, and a request for an apology that acknowledged what she did, specifically. Not "sorry you're upset," not "sorry for the misunderstanding," "sorry for throwing out my belongings." 2 days later, I got a call from a sanitation company. Elaine had tracked down where the trash had gone and paid a fee to access the sorted pile before it was processed. I met her there, both of us standing in the sharp smell of garbage and diesel, picking through ruined cardboard like strangers. She didn't look at me much. Her hands shook. Mine did too. We recovered more than I expected. My yearbooks, some letters, a shoebox of photos that had been shoved into a bag and somehow stayed dry. The locked green box had been the most important thing, and I already had that. When she finally handed me my grandmother's quilt, still folded, still smelling like our house, I felt my throat close. Elaine's voice came out small. I didn't think, she said. It wasn't a full apology. It was the closest she could get without admitting what it meant about her. I gave her back access to the storage unit through Mr. Heller after everything was documented and returned. I didn't keep the key as a trophy. I kept the lesson. I'm low contact now. I took my things, and I took my father's private memories, and I took myself out of a house where my grief was treated like clutter. I still get waves of guilt sometimes, because that's what people like Elaine train you to feel when you stop being convenient. But then I remember the trash bags lined up on the curb and the way she said, I didn't think you'd care, and the guilt turns into something steadier. Clarity. Thanks for watching. If you've ever had someone erase you from your own story and you had to draw a line to get your life back, share your story in the comments. I'd really like to hear it.